Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Richmond. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Reed Duke. We've got Seth Manfield, numero uno, number one in the world. 11-2 on black-red mid-range. He's playing against Aiden Simons-Rudolph in his first Grand Prix start. And we're looking for, this is a winning in? I know you can't guarantee it, but if you were sitting in this seat, you'd think
we believe so. Both these players had really good starts, so presumably pretty solid tiebreakers. And based on the size of the Grand Prix, 12-2-1 is going to be a record that has a very good chance of making the top 8. So you never know, but if whichever player wins, if they can secure a draw in the last round, they'll be in pretty good shape.
Wow, these opening turns, by the way, really signifies how both players have approached the format. Seth Manfield came ready to fight this fight.
Yeah, now Magma Spray is a card that is amazing in the black-red mirror. You see it taking out Scrap Heap Scrounger at a profit of mana and permanently exiling it, but it's a dead card against blue-white control. So these little trade-offs that the players have to decide during deck building can really pay off depending on the types of matchups that wind up being important. And Seth Manfield so far has made his tournament on doing pretty well in these black-red mirrors. He did lose to Oliver 2, the blue-white control deck.
And answers here for Seth Manfield. He's going to cast a Braid to destroy the Bomat Courier. Big turn here for Seth. Does he have a Haymaker to slam? 4 is where the fireworks really start. And he does, though it's his own take on it. Or maybe Brad Nelson's take on it, from what we heard. Karn.
So the real key here is the high loyalty of Karn. Normally, if you were to play any average level Planeswalker against black-red, you'd be worried about a haste creature, or maybe some lightning strikes just taking it down. But I can't imagine anything that's going to deal 6 points of damage from a board that starts with this position.
Aiden's going to have to settle for 1 point of damage here from a Bomat Courier. Uh-oh, no land drop past the turn here from Aiden.
Yeah, that was a key turn. He really needed to do something to keep pace with the Karn, but now Seth Manfield with the Planeswalker in play, more lands, more cards in hand, stronger deck in the late game. He's in the driver's seat.
Standard PTQ players, your parents for the
Seth is going to be content to keep on ticking up Karn. He could get a Scrap Heap Scrounger by ticking it down, but he's decided not to.
I like ticking up because what matters here is not finding a specific card, but just generally gaining incremental advantage, resource advantage, cardboard advantage, if it were, as it were, and also the loyalty of the Planeswalker. The higher that's going to be, the tougher it is for Simons-Rudolph to stabilize the board and get back into it.
2 plays. Aiden has to now decide. He's got a pair of Braids in hand, and it looks like he's going to aim this one at the Goblin Chain Whirler. That's going to leave a Heart of Kirin on the battlefield, which he can destroy. Next turn, though, falling behind on these land drops is really going to start to catch up with them. And it's just going to be Scrap Heap Scrounger go here from Aiden Simons-Rudolph.
From Seth's position here, there's no wrong moves. I mean, the worst play we can see from what we see on the battlefield is to minus Karn and put Rekindling Phoenix into play. That would be amazing, but Seth finds something better here as he's going to attack for 8 damage in the air, still have the Karn activation to go.
That's right. He used the hidden mode on Heart of Kirin, exchanging a point of loyalty to activate it. That way he can still attack with his Glorybringer.
Now he's going to keep the pressure on, maybe by making a construct with Karn, or no, he's going to pick up the Phoenix, which at this point, a player like Seth is just racking his brain for what's the worst that can possibly happen. How can my opponent, make things difficult on me? And I think putting the Phoenix in his hand is just a case of, all right, if Aiden's got something I didn't think of and he manages to kill my Karn, how do I leave myself in the best position if things start falling apart? And I think his answer that he came up with is just putting Rekindling Phoenix nice and safe and secure in his hand.
Aiden finally finds a fourth land here, but is it too late? Sure, he can cast a card like Rekindling Phoenix or even Hazaret, but they're not doing a whole lot here.
I would say yes, it is too late. What Aiden needs to do is he needs to answer those two big flyers and then get to a position where his hand is empty enough that he can attack Karn with the Hazaret. He really needs a resilient threat like Hazaret, because you got to figure at this late stage in the game, Seth's going to be prepared for any normal type of creature that he could deploy. But if Aiden can somehow stabilize his life total and then get Hazaret into play, maybe he can give Seth a little bit of a headache, but it's a multi-step process from here.
Aiden decided to be patient here, knowing that he had the Abrade in hand, but he's still going to face down a turn of Rekindling Phoenix and Scrap Heap Scrounger from Manfield. And that Glorybringer is going to come off of Exert next turn as well, so overwhelming board presence now from Seth Manfield, and there's really no way out for Aiden.
Okay, so let's say Aiden starts the turn by attacking Karn with his Scrap Heap Scrounger. Seth Manfield has to think about whether to let his Planeswalker go or to block with the Phoenix. If he blocks with the Phoenix, are there cards or combination of cards that Aiden could have to punish him? Goblin Chain Whirler, probably not good enough. That will still leave Seth with the Glorybringer. Something like a Magma Spray plus an Unlicensed Disintegration, could that stabilize the board for Aiden? I'm trying to predict what Seth is going to be thinking about when Aiden makes this attack, and whether or not Seth could be goaded into blocking with the Phoenix here.
Seth at 19 life is like, sure, block.
Attention players in the 230 standard event. Pairings for round 1 have been posted next to the black pairing point. 230 standard, pairings have been posted next to the black.
And there's Rekindling Phoenix go for Manfield, who gets back his Rekindling Phoenix. Now it has haste.
So Seth just needs one removal spell, then he can pair the Glorybringer Exert with a removal to force through 11 points of attackers. Yeah, 12 in the air. That will do.
That'll do just nicely, won't it? And like you said, it just kind of doesn't matter at this point. He's thinking about, well, should I attack? Sure, whatever. Send them all in there, and that's going to do it. Game 1 goes to Seth Manfield, and I have to say that's just how he drew it up, right? This is the matchup that his main deck was configured for, and it looked like it. All the way from turn 1 Magma Spray, taking out the Scrap Heap Scrounger of Aiden on turn 2, and it's...
Yeah, and then in that sense, you can think of a card like Magma Spray as being a pair with a card like Karn, Scion of Urza. You're not going to see either one of those cards individually in a black-red aggro deck, because it's sort of off-plan. You don't want to be attacking your opponent's life total and then take some turns off to get an advantage with Karn. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you don't want to be Magma Spraying your opponent's Scrap Heap Scroungers if your goal is to kill them on turn 4 or 5. But Seth has put together a little bit of a different game plan where he wants to keep the board clear, focus on efficient answers, and then the way that game played out was he was able to get a Planeswalker down, ticket up to 6 loyalty on a completely empty battlefield, and we all know how hard that is to come back from it in Standard.
So Aiden's going to have to consult his sideboard here and see how he wants to fight this fight. I mean, he's certainly got some signals from Seth that this isn't your average black-red deck. He saw Karn. So he'll know something's going on there.
Yeah, let's not count Aiden out just yet. He did defeat Luis Salvato playing a virtually identical deck just a couple of rounds ago. So if he can have a good start with that well-timed Hazaret, that's his relative advantage in the matchup. The early turns are his advantage, where the middle and late game are Seth's advantage.
Seth just making sure to count out his sideboard, make sure he's got the correct number of cards there.
230 standard players. Your event is ready to begin at the black
All right, looks like we're just about ready to get shuffled up, presented, and back to business here for our two players. One of them slightly more experienced than the other. Though, if we do look back in time, we'll remember that Seth Manfield won his first GP when he was very young, 15 or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, Seth's a player who's been around for a long time and has been very good for a long time.
Yeah, he kind of came and went, and then it was, what, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that he went full-time, and just all of a sudden you just saw him in top 8s everywhere. And I mean, he's really racked up most of his career over these last 4 years, 5 years. It's been a very good run for him. 4 top 8s at the Pro Tour plus a win, and he won the World Championship.
In decisive fashion, nonetheless. 13-1 Swiss record.
Remember when he played against Owen Turtenwald in the finals? That was an epic match. Went to 5 games. Very difficult matchup. I remember a lot of Siege Rhinos. It's kind of a blur of Siege Rhinos at this point, but
Real clash of the Titans there, Owen and Seth. That's a good rivalry that's developed over the years with them battling for Player of the Year title, and of course, as you mentioned, the World's Finals. But certainly, both those players have a good, reasonable claim to being the best of their generation, or the best American player, or the best player in the world of their generation.
all right, let's see if Aiden can even things up, or if it's going to be Seth cruising to yet another GP top 8, looking to extend that Player of the Year lead. He is ahead of the next competitor by 1 pro point, which of course happens to be Reed Duke here.
Ugh, Aiden's hand. All 4 mana spells.
Looks like both of them are going to take a mull here, though. Aiden with a little smile there, like, oh, all right. Guess we'll both do this.
It's not a good feeling when you're in your highest pressure match of the tournament. I mean, you set it up that this is probably a win and in for top 8, and you're just drawing your opening hand going, come on, give me something nice to work with, and then you have to send it back. It's a disheartening feeling, but the key is just not letting it get to you. And we know Seth has been in this position often enough that he's going to make the most of any situation, but hopefully Aiden also can maintain a good attitude and focus in the game and not get discouraged.
I wonder how the endurance thing matters here as well. I mean, Seth does this for his living, right? He knows what it's like to play these long tournaments. In fact, this is the 3rd day of play for Seth. He did play day 1 of the Legacy events as well, and he seems fine. But being Aiden's first GP, I'll tell you what, round 13, round 14 is where you start to go, oh boy, I'm getting tired. All right, looks like we've got keeps here from both of our players. Top for Aiden, bottom for Manfield. Passes the turn.
Really nice hand for Aiden here with those resilient threats that are going to be his best chance of winning the matchup. He's got a Hazaret. He's got a Rekindling Phoenix.
Okay. But Seth's actually the first one with something on the battlefield. He's got a Scrap Heap Scrounger, and Aiden looks like he's considering if he wants to use a Braid on it here.
And I know that was a question that I had in my mind. Maybe some players at home who are familiar with this matchup were going to be wondering, is Seth Manfield going to keep in a card like Scrap Heap Scrounger even when he's on the draw? It's clear that his plan is a lot more about late game value and defending himself, but I guess he just identified that having the nice early play that's at least resilient to some of the removal in the opponent's deck is worthwhile.
Pia Nalar's the next play for Manfield before passing the turn. You can see why Aiden decided not to use his Abrade. He had a Goblin Chain Whirler, which would hold back the Scrap Heap Scrounger anyway. Of course, the upside of using the Abrade is that it does get another card out of his hand for a potential Hazoret hit the first time for the first turn he plays it. But Reed, no fourth land.
Yeah, that's too bad for Aiden. His opening hand was really strong, but he didn't find the land off the top. You had mentioned him scrying to the top. Did you for sure see that he scryed something to the top? So I think his first draw step was Abrade, which is a card that if I had looked at with scry, I would have been hard pressed to decide.
Guess I'm not 100%. Oh, look at this, a Doomfall now from Manfield. That's going to get rid of the Chain Whirler, and all of a sudden Manfield's the one who's on the aggressive plan. 6 damage just like that, and it's going to force Aiden to use his removal spell now. He's going to choose to kill Pia Nalar.
I really like that play from Seth. I think a lot of players would be tempted to go for the hand with Doomfall, as Goblin Chain Whirler is not one of the juiciest targets, but I think Seth correctly identifies that tempo is going to be a big factor in this game, and maybe Aiden is choked a little bit on his plays, so it's way better to answer a creature that he's already invested the mana into casting, rather than look at his hand, okay, I'll take one of your 2 Rekindling Phoenixes or one of your 2 Hazarets, and then let you still spend your mana on the other one the next turn.
Kind of interesting, Manfield, though, also just passed the turn back to Aiden. Of course, he's significantly ahead on board, but Aiden just can't buy a bucket here. He draws another Abrade, which he's going to be forced to use just to try to protect his life total at this point, maybe tie up a little bit of mana. He had a Scrap Heap Scrounger as well, which he didn't want to play because it can't block. And then he also, it looks like he has his own copy of Doomfall in there, which he can't cast. And now he draws Unlicensed Disintegration, which he also can't cast. A little Dragon Skull Summon off the top would be pretty good here for Aiden, but in the meantime, the hits keep coming here. Manfield using up Magma Spray to kill the Scrap Heap Scrounger. And then to get his own Scrap Heap Scrounger back, he exiled Pia Nalar, and now he's got 4 damage at the ready. Seth Manfield with just a little, his arm hit the top of his deck and a card fell off. So you just want to be precise with this stuff, so they called the judge over just to make sure that there wasn't a card seen or that they didn't need to do any randomization or anything.
Yeah,
like
I can't imagine there's going to be any issue here. I could tell from my seat that no cards were flipped over. It's just the card that Seth was about to draw anyway.
Yeah. You're right. I scribed 1 card. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to randomize it just so that we're certain that no one knows what that is. So let's put that card back in this rotation. Take everything but the bottom card and shuffle,
Okay.
present. We'll put it back on top. So then you'll present.
I guess since a card got knocked, they just wanted to make double sure. There was something. Well, now we know that Seth did scry to the bottom with his mulligan because they kept that card on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only known card.
Yeah, the judges always make these rulings based on whether a card could have been seen and not whether a card actually was seen. So the policy is just if something gets flipped or knocked off the top of the deck, you don't even have to bother asking the players, did you see it? You just always employ the same policy of shuffling the deck.
Very little downside to this ruling, right? Shuffling the deck has effectively no effect, but it does make sure that the integrity of the game is in place, where Seth wouldn't know it was coming, though it looks like he had his draw step coming anyway. All right, Rekindling Phoenix. After attacking for 4, and this is probably the last stop here for Aiden. He's got to find a land now. He does. He can play his own Rekindling Phoenix, but it still feels like he's too far behind to come back because look at this. Vraska's Contempt, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's lethal. And he extends the hand. Seth Manfield all but locking up yet another GP top 8, looking to extend that Player of the Year race. All he knows how to do is win.
Yeah. Going to this weekend was in the lead for the Player of the Year race, but he had the distinct disadvantage that, well, he'd already done so well over the course of the year that it's hard to improve because your pro point total, it's capped at your best 6 Grand Prix finishes, and Seth had done so well in so many different Grand Prix that he needed a top 8 to improve on his 6th best finish, but here he is.
It looks like he's got one.
Yeah, he'll be looking now to really put pace between him and his next two competitors by winning matches in the top 8 to gain extra pro points.
It's making your life hard, Reed. That's his job, though. All right, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have Time Walk from you here from Richmond.